Welcome to episode 1 of Arbitration Life. I'm Janette, Brin.
And I'm Hana Doumal.
As you can see, we're two beautiful, highly driven career women in the field of arbitration. It's 2021, and we are looking forward to you joining us here for Arbitration Life as we share current interests and perspectives around the field of arbitration. We are keeping it real on the topics of career and interesting news in the field.
And speaking of keeping it real on careers, it's International Women's Day, and how fitting it is that we are kicking off our new series, Arbitration Life, with 4 amazing women in the field of arbitration who are all on the top of their careers.
Let's not forget that International Women's Day is celebrated all around the world. It's a day when women are recognized for their achievements without regards for divisions, whether national, ethnic, cultural, economic, or even political. Let's say hats off to women all around the world.
And happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
So today's guest is someone I met a few years ago when we were both working in Hong Kong. Now, please welcome Miss Paula Gibbs. Hi, Paula.
Hi, Paula. All right, Paula, thank you so much for joining us. It's such an honor to have you here with us today. I just want to get things started by asking you to describe an experience that has had the greatest impact on your career. What would it be?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think very hard to pick one experience. So maybe you'll indulge me with 2. I would say the Viz Moot had taking part in that as a participant had a massive experience or massive effect on my career because it really introduced me to the world of international arbitration. I took part in pre-moots in Milan and Paris at the ICC before going to Vienna. And I think it's just such a wonderful opportunity to study arbitration, almost like doing a master's in arbitration, I think. And then to meet teams from all over the world in Vienna at the competition and at the pre-moots. I think that really, I had studied arbitration before that and was interested in international dispute resolution, but I think the Moot gives you an opportunity to see it in action as a student. And so that really piqued my interest in arbitration. And then I'd say a second experience that's really had a big impact on my career was my first trial as a junior counsel in New Zealand. So I haven't had I have now, but had an arbitration where I've been junior counsel. But I think the first time you're in the hot seat, I think, where senior counsel is really relying on you and you have to be all over the evidence and you're reminding them to take witnesses to certain documents or to remind the judge in that case, but the same applies to arbitration, the tribunal, of key cases, and make sure that they have understood your points. I think I had an experience early on in my career in New Zealand where there was a very small team working on a complicated case, and I was in that position as junior counsel. I think that really was when I felt that I followed the right path for certain, and that, as I say, that's the fun part after all the hard work that it takes to get to trial. If you're looking or to a hearing in arbitration, if the case doesn't settle, then I think, although it can be a very demanding week or a few weeks or months, it's the experience that you will learn the most from, and it's also I think it's the accumulation of all that effort, and it's where you can really add value when you are all over the document and the arguments. So yeah, those would probably be 2, but I think there are probably more.
I know that there must be so much more, but the interest of time, we'll just ask another question. But thank you so much. And actually, I don't know if it probably relates very much to hearings, because there are very exciting moments, but also very difficult moments. So the second question that we have for you is, what difficulty or failure even taught you the most in your career?
So another great question. I was thinking about that, and I think that when I was a trainee at Allen & Overy in London, there was a group of trainees in my intake who had all taken part as a team in the Vismoot together. So there's quite a few of us that were very interested in international arbitration. And it happened that on qualification, there was only one spot in the arbitration team. So the competition was very hot. And I lost out on that space to a colleague who's still at Allen & Overy now and a very good friend. And I think what I learned from that is that, your path may not be always direct and linear, but if you are passionate about a certain area of law, there are always other options. So I think that was a very good learning experience. For me, I've still ended up doing dispute resolution work and continued, despite the various jurisdictions that I've worked in, to have involvement in arbitration and arbitration related work throughout my career. So
Absolutely.
I think,
Yeah. And you worked
being
all over,
open-minded.
yeah, you worked all around the world. Like
Yes.
you told us you worked in Hong Kong, in New Zealand, in England, and in the BVI.
Yes, and despite working in maybe jurisdictions that you might not associate with arbitration, I've continued to develop my arbitration expertise and work on international arbitrations in New Zealand, Hong Kong, although at an offshore firm, and continuing now in the BVI.
So Paula, you spoke about the Vismoot quite a bit so far.
Yes.
So this sounds like it was a big deal, right?
It,
so can you share
yes.
just a little bit more about what that experience was like or is like for anybody earlier, because it was earlier in your career that you would have participated in that. So what
Yes.
is that like? And
well,
how
I think
did it
it's
really influence you?
The opportunity arose when I was studying at the College of Law in London, the legal practice course, which is a 1-year course before you start working as a trainee, that trainee solicitors have to do. And so the opportunity arose to be part of a team in the Vismoot. I didn't know that much about the competition before I volunteered, but was interested in the description. And then I would say that it opens up the world of arbitration to students because you have fantastic practitioners that support it, that act as arbitrators in the competition and in the pre-moots. And also the problem, is often based on a real case. So it really gives students insight into what it's like to be a lawyer working on arbitration, because they have to review the evidence and they have to draft the memorandum of claimant and the memorandum for respondent, and then they prepare for the oral advocacy rounds. And they also get to practice their advocacy skills numerous times, which I think, like anything, the more you practice, the better you get. So I think it's a great opportunity at a very, junior age to get an insight into arbitration, what the practice is like, dealing with jurisdiction arguments and difficult, factual arguments, and then also to network within the field of arbitration, meet their peer group, other students who are interested in it, and senior arbitration practitioners who they can ask for advice. I know it's difficult now that it's virtual, and the students who are taking part this year and last year will, miss out on, actually meeting people face to face. But nevertheless, I think it's still a great opportunity to learn more about arbitration. As I said, I think it's almost like doing a master's in arbitration, and so many people in the arbitration community volunteer their time as coaches, as arbitrators for the competitions. So it's a wonderful way to make contacts as well.
All right. I like the fact that it's a huge networking opportunity, and that you're still friends with the other student that you competed against in the end.
Yeah, well, with all my teammates and with some of the teams that attended the pre-moots in Milan, and some people that I met in Vienna, the other competitors from, universities like Stanford and Freiburg, in Germany, and now there's, many more teams from further locations around the world taking part. So I think, and also given the fact that it's virtual at the moment, that means it's even less of a barrier to students because you don't incur the travel costs. So I think this year we'll probably have a record number of teams taking part at all hours of the day and night.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your role at the time you work at Harneys, and you've been recently focusing on interim measures, interim relief applications, and also you told us on enforcement of arbitral awards. So could you please tell us more about this focus right now?
So when I joined Harneys, I wasn't sure how much opportunity there would be to do arbitration related work. I knew about the BVI-IAC and that the BVI was trying to develop its name as a seat. So I was very encouraged and interested in that. But as I knew it was a new arbitration centre, not as developed as the major seats, it wouldn't have the same caseload. So I was curious to see how much arbitration there would be in the BVI. And luckily for us, that's growing. And I think with the fantastic facilities that we have, it's only a matter of time before that caseload will grow significantly. But I also realized, and Hana will know this from working in Hong Kong, that many of the assets that might need to be enforced against are located offshore. Often companies are structured in Asia with a BVI company or a Cayman company at the top of the corporate structure chain that might ultimately own assets. And so due to that, I became very interested, given the number of arbitrations in Asia and the number of awards, whether those might need to be enforced offshore. And so during my time at Harneys, I've seen an increase in the number of arbitration awards that need to be recognized or enforced in the BVI or the Cayman Islands. And that was something that I didn't have much experience with before joining Harneys. So it's been very interesting to learn about enforcement. Ultimately, the key for the parties is to get their hands on the money, and if you can't successfully enforce an award and the other party isn't voluntarily complying, then you potentially spent a lot of money on arbitration. So we're really encouraging all parties to think about enforcement from the outset. And that's where, the BVI, the commercial court, is very quick moving. We have great judges. And so obtaining interim relief to freeze assets in support of arbitration is an option the parties should also bear in mind. And we're seeing developing case law, and we've had a few very interesting judgments, including from the Court of Appeal in Donna Union in the last few years, on the scope of the interim relief that the BVI courts are able to grant under the Arbitration Act. So I think that this is a very interesting developing area, and it's something that was new for me when I joined Harneys. So it's been great to broaden my expertise and to learn about enforcement and interim relief.
Awesome. Paula, we're celebrating International Women's Day. So as a woman, what would you say is the key step in building a career in arbitration? Or what was the key step for you?
So happy International Women's Day to both of you in advance. I would say that a key step for building your career, and something that I wish that I'd been more aware of, is the role of mentors and sponsors. So mentors and to make use of the networking opportunities, within your firm, within your local dispute resolution community, and then also the overarching organizations such as Arbitral Women, especially for women. I think that's a wonderful supportive organization where they really try to lift the members up. And sometimes I think as women, we're maybe not very good at boasting about our achievements or flagging them. So I think being part of something like Arbitral Women that helps you to share your achievements and that actively is a group of women supporting each other is a wonderful thing. But I think a key thing I would encourage all women is to network with your peer group, seek out mentors. Don't be afraid to approach people, and ask them if they'd be happy to have, maybe, I know we all have a bit of Zoom fatigue, but, if you're particularly interested in a case that they've worked on, or, their area of practice or some experience that they have, including registrars at arbitration centres, you might reach out, send them a message and ask them, would they be happy to speak to you? And I think that people can be much more willing than you'd expect. And then I also think that as women, we have to be braver to ask. And, if someone's too busy, just be understanding of that and maybe try again another time, or, I'm sure there are lots of people in the field who have that area of expertise that you'd be interested in speaking to. So, I would encourage women to be braver and to ask, for help or to ask for advice. And I think you'll find that most people are very willing to share their experience.
Very good. And thank you for the piece of advice you're giving young women and, practitioners in the field of arbitration today, because I think it's nice to hear it from an experienced arbitration practitioner that you should reach out and just encourage you to just have new mentors and try to gather more experience. So another question is based on all the industries you've worked on. So you told us that you worked on the financial, construction, telecommunication, and agriculture industries. Out of all these industries, which presented a case that you think challenged you the most?
I had one case in particular springs to mind. When I was in New Zealand, I had I worked on a case in relation to the construction of a geothermal power plant, and I needed to understand how the plant had been damaged. And it was very technical physics and engineering evidence. And that, I think that's one of the wonderful things as well about working in arbitration, is that you're presented with, often like industries that you've no experience in, haven't studied, and you have to almost become an expert in that field in order to be able to explain it in a clear fashion to a judge or arbitral tribunal who also will not be an expert. So I've spent a lot of time working with incredible experts in the construction industry, and to try to understand and be able to explain clearly what was causing damage and how that was affecting performance. And I think that was probably the most challenging factual evidence that I've had to get my head around. Yeah, it was certainly a dive into engineering, which I have to say I don't think is my particular talent. So I think that there's always challenges, but it also keeps it extremely interesting.
Paula, what would you say, now let's keep it real for a moment now. What would you say is the craziest thing that ever happened in the middle of a hearing?
So in my first trial, on the second day of the hearing, I think we realized that one of the witnesses who had not given evidence yet was being provided with the transcript, or at least we thought so, which as you'll know, a witness isn't supposed to read the transcript until after they've given their own evidence. And so we had to make a very quick application to the judge to raise this issue. In the middle of a complicated trial that was compressed into 5 days, it actually ended up going for an extra day or two. But yeah, that was very, I think, dramatic. Probably, not something that happens all the time, and we had to react very fast. But that's probably the craziest thing. I've had the fortune to take part in a virtual hearing, fully virtual arbitration hearing in the last year with witnesses and translators all over the world, and that was quite an experience. But it actually worked, surprisingly well, I thought. But luckily, no, it didn't put the cat filter on.
Not yet. That was a good one. I hope to see more actually virtual hearings. We shall see. So yeah, other question, more personal question, because we know you've been living in different places, but besides the BVI, because I don't know if that would be an obvious answer. What is your most favorite city you've ever lived in?
Okay, I would say I would have to pick Auckland in New Zealand for lifestyle, because, and I think that's partly why, I also love the BVI, is because you have, easy access, of course, not as easy as the BVI. I don't think anywhere can compare to beaches and to an outdoor lifestyle. And I love to spend some time at the beach. I find it a great way to unwind after a busy day at work, swimming and hiking. So Hong Kong is an incredible city. It was wonderful to have the opportunity to work there. But I think, I love the beach and the outdoors. So probably going to have to choose Auckland.
Okay. And I guess now Janette has the most serious question.
I have the most serious.
Yes. Be ready.
Okay, the most serious question. Is it How to Get Away with Murder or The Good Wife?
Ooh, okay. The Good Wife. I think I have to go.
Okay. That's good.
So I guess it's no secret then, one of the other things that you like to do for fun after a hard day at work is Netflix binge. Watch your favorite legal shows.
Who doesn't? Yeah,
Who doesn't?
We all fall into that trap.
What would you say is another favorite?
Netflix. Oh, what have I really loved recently? For something funny, I thought The Good Place was very clever. And I have always been a Grey's Anatomy fan, so that's kind of my go-to if I. Yeah,
I think everybody loves that show too.
Yeah. Very much so.
All right, so Paula, I think it's indeed been a pleasure to have you join us. It's been an honor to get to know you better and get to know more about your awesome, wonderful, amazing career. Thank you so much for joining us today. And goodbye. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Arbitration Life is sponsored by the British Virgin Islands International Arbitration Centre, meeting the rapidly evolving dispute resolution needs of arbitration users worldwide. The BVI IAC is a neutral, impartial, efficient, and reliable dispute resolution institution and conference center located in the Caribbean, Latin America, and at the crossroads of the Americas. For more information, visit bviiac.org.